the late 1980s, the Japanese auto industry was losing its collective minds. They started building things that made absolutely no sense. The Americans were building terrible cars in the MKII's era. The Japanese were known for little tiny, compact, fuel-efficient cars. And then they started building things that just weren't. This is the 1987 Toyota Supra Turbo. Came originally with a 7M GTE, made some very respectable amounts of power. This particular car is going to have a little bit different engine setup. This one, we're swapping into a 2JZ-GTE. So the owner is Jeremy Moore. He's a photographer of ours. You've seen a lot of his work. And he wanted something that was going to be fast, fun, street drivable, but also be able to go to the track and embarrass some people. Anytime you're going to be making a whole lot of horsepower or making a race car, shoes are important. In this case, doing a set of Toyota Proxys R1Rs on a set of KMC 17 by 7.5 wheels. Should give it enough size to keep this thing pretty well planted, give it some pretty good traction. Now this car is not going to be set up as a complete drag car. This is going to be a road car. It's also going to see a little bit of track usage here and there. So we don't want to go with a straight up drag tire, but a Toyota Proxys R1R is essentially an autocross tire that can also be run on the streets. Not real great for mileage, but it's a hell of a good tire. One of the things a lot of people forget about until the very end of making a fast car, if you put a whole lot of go, you need a whole lot of whoa. So, on Jeremy's MKIII Supra, we've done some trickery here. This is a Brembo conversion for the MKIII Supra, utilizing Mercedes Brembo parts. Make sure you follow this link. We'll show you that entire brake conversion as well as your shopping list. But, as you can see, this 17 by 7 wheel, made by KMC, and the Brembo calipers, all your power stop stuff, everything fits perfectly. Very, very important. Also, taking this thing to the ground, we've swapped over the stock, worn out 1980s Toyota suspension, which 1987 was kind of the very beginning of a lot of adjustable suspensions. This did have adjustable dampers from the factory. We have swapped this over to a Tyne system with a coilover setup. So we're going to be able to adjust spring rate, damper, all that fun stuff, as well as height adjustment to get this thing dialed in exactly where we want it. So paired with the front brakes from Power Stop, we went ahead and we swapped out the rears. One of the things you don't want to worry about when you're finally getting your hot rod back on the road is all the stupid stuff that can stop the build. So we have replaced all of the rear setup on this car, but we did it with factory size stuff. So this is an original Toyota Supra Turbo rear caliper. We've upgraded the brakes to a slotted and cross-drilled setup, but it is all original factory sizing. So one of the nice things with this is this car will see some occasional track usage. The problem with running a 17 by 7.5 wheel is it really limits the amount of tires that you can put on the back of this thing. We will have some height adjustment that we can play with, but you want to do as little adjustment as possible when you go to the track as far as being able to change all of your alignment and all your suspension setups. So with going with this smaller brake setup in the rear, it still allows us to put a smaller wheel so we can get a nice big drag slick on the back for the occasional time when he wants to take this thing to the track. Well, we got a big box back from Drift Motion over in California. We're going to do a little bit of an unboxing thing here. We don't know what's in there. Could be something interesting, could be a bunch of packing peanuts. Anyway, so you've seen this process going. This is Jeremy Moore. This is his 1987 Toyota Supra that we're in the process of building. We want to do a little bit of an unboxing here because it's finally that point in time in the build process where things really start moving along. So we've got the brakes on the car, we've got the wheels on the car, we've got the suspension on the car. It's time to start playing with the fun stuff underneath. So Jeremy, we'll cut this thing open?
Absolutely. They taped the holy hell out of it, which I appreciate.
Now they didn't send back our extremely sexy case that we built for these things, but that's okay.
You ready?
Yeah. Because if I have to return it, I need to get that done. What's in the box?
Another box! It's just a box in a box!
It's a box in a box.
Another smaller box. light.
What's in the box?
More peanuts!
Jeremy, congratulations. I'd like to say thank you for buying a bunch of packing peanuts.
Right? And now we got a box for the packing peanuts.
Thank you, Drift Motion, for your excellent packing skills. We appreciate it. Keeping this thing safe.
Ooh.
Boy Scouts, never cut towards yourself.
Uh-huh. Yeah, but I wasn't in the Boy Scouts. Oh,
Mongo it.
Mongo it.
You want to take a picture before you pull it out? Before you pull out, do you want to get a picture? That is a freshly rebuilt set of twin turbos. With the turbos back from Drift Motion, it's time to give this guy a little bit of a paint job. The inner sections, the exhaust manifold section, are cast iron, so these will rust over time. So we need to be able to put a bit of paint down on these guys. We're going to mask off the aluminum sections of the front piece of this, leave those guys pretty, and then we're going to paint the hot side of this turbo setup as well as the exhaust manifolds with a black header paint so that it stays pretty for the many, many moons to come. Don't want your brand new stuff getting rusty. So I'm going to clean these guys off using a whole bunch of brake clean, let it dry, and then toss some paint down on it.
Now that we have our brake conversion done, our struts installed, it's time to drop the subframe out of the car because I'm going to assemble the engine, the transmission, and the subframe all together as one, and then I'm going to install them all into the car in one piece.
One of the biggest causes of headaches with this particular build is putting together a car that we not only didn't take apart, but we're completely unsure of what parts we do and don't have. Think of it as trying to put together a puzzle, but having puzzle pieces from 3 different puzzles, all of which look pretty similar. Because this car was originally a 7M GTE car, we have parts from the teardown of that, as well as the power steering rack that originally came in the vehicle. We have parts from a JDM 2JZ Aristo. We also have parts from a US domestic market 1995 twin-turbo 2JZ-GTE Supra. On top of all that, we've also utilized some parts from an IS300 Lexus in order to get the steering to work correctly. With builds like this, one of the biggest challenges is the fact that you don't know what you don't know. Progress has to be made until you run into an issue with something, and then you engineer your way around it, or try to find a hard-to-source part. Several pieces we were missing in this build were the last one in Toyota dealership inventories. We ordered parts from all across the country. If you watch the intro video for this build, we filled most of a truck bed with parts collected by multiple previous owners. Being a few generations removed from the people who began this build has added an extra headache or two.
So like everything custom, I have to come up with a creative solution for the custom motor mounts interfering with the turbocharger oil drain tubes. They don't work with these. So we'll figure that out.
Well, as you can see, the motor is actually in the car at this point in time. The nice thing about having a subframe setup is we can put it in, put it out pretty much whenever we want to. Now, in order to do that, we do have to remove the intake manifold and kind of walk the motor back and then walk the motor back, put the intake manifold back on. But for now, it is sitting in between the front fenders. Now, we do have a couple of parts we're waiting on. We're looking for a lower thermostat housing that we were waiting from Toyota for. We have fabricated ourselves the drain tube setup that we needed. Could not find one for the life of us anywhere, so we made our own. It's the beautiful part about being able to fabricate. Sometimes you can engineer your way around these problems. So we've got those two situations handled. We've got the power steering situation handled. There are a few other things that we need to button up and finish off the ignition system, get the intercooler piping figured out, which is going to be interesting. But that's going to all be for another episode. So hopefully you've enjoyed watching the progress on this Mark III Supra coming back to life. Make sure you please click the subscribe button. Click on like. We always like it when you like us. And drop us a comment if you like seeing what we're doing here. We're trying to grow our YouTube presence and show off a little bit more of what we do. And let us know how we're doing.